For 2,000 years, Cleopatra's final secret lay buried beneath the sea, and now it has been revealed. Off Alexandria's coast, archaeologists have uncovered two sealed chambers untouched for millennia.
I never imagined that the temple was connected to the sea in that way, because the temple actually, there is a modern highway, and I believe it was the limit of the archaeological site.
They believe this could be the lost tomb of Cleopatra. But is this an archaeological truth, or merely a myth awakened after 2,000 years of burial? Does Cleopatra truly lie beneath this silt?
If there is 1% of a chance that the last queen of Egypt could be buried there, it's my duty to search for her.
In 51 BC, as Egypt teetered under the shadow of Roman ambition, an 18-year-old ascended the throne. She inherited an empire in decline, fractured by civil war and besieged by foreign greed, yet, in just a few short years, Cleopatra transformed herself from a political pawn into the master of the board. It is said Cleopatra seduced men with her beauty. But what brought Caesar and Antony to their knees was not her allure, it was her intellect. She spoke 9 languages: Greek, Egyptian, Hebrew, Syriac, Parthian, even Nubian. She could hold court with Greek philosophers, debate Jewish scholars, and spar with Roman generals. Cleopatra understood one truth in an era dominated by military might and masculinity. Image was more potent than armies. She needed a symbol to legitimize her power not just for her people, but for the gods themselves. She found it in Isis, the supreme goddess of ancient Egypt. Isis the mother, the healer, the protector, the bringer of life and rebirth. Legend tells of Isis wandering the land to gather the 14 pieces of her husband Osiris, dismembered by a traitor and scattered across Egypt. Through her magic, she reassembled and revived him, becoming the embodiment of pain, love, and power over death. Cleopatra saw herself as the living incarnation of Isis, and Mark Antony the Roman she loved fiercely as her Osiris. In doing so, she wove their love story into a living myth, a political act cloaked in the garb of divinity. At royal ceremonies, Cleopatra appeared as Isis draped in white robes, crowned with a silver moon, and wielding a lotus-shaped scepter, the emblem of rebirth. She had her image struck on coins, standing beside Osiris Mark Antony as twin deities. To her people, she was no mere queen but a goddess in flesh, ruling from Alexandria's palace and guiding Egypt through its final throes. Thus, when Rome closed in, Cleopatra was not merely defending her throne, she was safeguarding the soul of Egypt. And if death was inevitable, she would choose a death that forced empires to bow. Taposiris Magna, where Kathleen Martinez now excavates, was once a major religious center for Isis and Osiris. Its name means the Great Tomb of Osiris. Ancient Egyptians believed Osiris died and was reborn each year with the Nile's flood, when rising waters brought fertile silt and life to the land, at Taposiris. They built a temple to reenact this journey, the union of water, earth, and soul. For Cleopatra, this place held dual significance, a sacred site for rituals, and an eternal symbol of love and rebirth. If she saw herself as Isis and Antony as Osiris, burial here would be more than rest, it would be a rite of reunion beyond death. This is why many scholars believe Cleopatra chose death by the venom of a serpent, a creature tied to Isis, and was entombed with Antony in the temple of the goddess she served, a death scripted not as tragedy, but as a transcendent symbol. In 2005, Kathleen Martinez, a lawyer from the Dominican Republic, arrived in Egypt with a singular conviction she could find Cleopatra's burial place. She was no professional archaeologist, she had no fame, no major funding, only a hypothesis that made the academic world scoff. Cleopatra is not in Alexandria's royal quarter. She lies in a temple where Isis was worshipped. Zahi Hawass, an icon of Egyptian archaeology who oversaw countless excavations, dismissed her outright. No one buries a queen in a temple. That contradicts Egyptian culture. To many. Martinez was naive, but she believed history might be wrong. For 17 years, she and her small team dug through layers of earth, cataloged pottery shards, and mapped crumbled bricks. Time and again, floods halted their work. Funding ran dry, yet she persisted. Then, in late 2022, a glimmer of hope emerged. A hand-carved stone tunnel, 13 meters underground and stretching 1,305 meters toward the Mediterranean, was uncovered. Engineers called it a geometric marvel, precise to an astonishing degree. It was neither a Roman drainage system nor a typical Egyptian tomb passage. It resembled a ceremonial pathway, a journey to the waters, where souls might depart for the afterlife. In her journal, Martinez wrote, "I don't know if I'm nearing truth or delusion, but I feel Cleopatra stood here." In September 2023 at the tunnel's end beneath Taposiris Magna, sonar scans detected an anomaly squared stone blocks, repeating along a straight axis, buried in seabed silt. The area was gridded and dredged. Weeks of clearing revealed a complex of ancient harbor structures directly aligned with the Isis temple's access docks, causeways, and massive column foundations, all oriented toward the shore's religious center, suggesting a ceremonial link between land and water. By early 2024, 3D models from sonar and underwater photogrammetry revealed the harbor's ritualistic layout tiered approaches, corridors aligned with the temple, and stone platforms bearing traces of anchors or offerings. The structure's relative preservation pointed to a sudden catastrophe seismic subsidence paired with an ancient tsunami rather than gradual decay. Limestone surfaces showed wear from flowing water and silt buildup, evidence of a space in constant dialogue with the tides. Excavations in the silt yielded artifacts of immense significance: coins bearing Cleopatra's likeness, a black granite Isis-style statue, pottery shards with ritual soot, and a gold-leafed mummy, likely a temple officiant, forming a chain of evidence tied to Isis-Osiris worship in the late Ptolemaic period. A pectoral amulet inscribed with a ritual formula about entering the water reinforced the idea water here was not merely geography but a religious medium. When layered together, the architectural axis from temple to sea, the kilometer-long tunnel pointing offshore, the submerged harbor, these elements formed a closed symbolic system, a progression from sacred land to water, from terrestrial rites to subaqueous ceremonies. In ancient Egyptian thought, water was both origin and passageway between worlds. Every soul crossed a regenerative waterscape to reach eternity. In this context, a water tomb ceases to be metaphor and becomes a testable archaeological possibility. Yet water is also a destroyer. Salt, hydraulic flux, and fine silt preserve large structures while erasing fragile traces: wood, fabric, pigments, making interpretations vulnerable to symbolic overreach without rigorous context. Dating is skewed by the marine environment. Stratigraphy is disrupted by subsidence. Researchers must combine methods: shallow seismic monitoring, hydrographic surveying, art-style comparisons, and analysis of stone cuts to identify construction phases. Under diving lights, granite pillars rise from the mud like markers of an interrupted ritual. They are not isolated. Each block, step, and foundation aligns with a radial spatial system from the shore's Isis temple, through the submerged corridor, to the waterfront, viewed holistically. This is no mere technical harbor. It is a ritual stage where water is the central prop. Within this framework, the hypothesis of a funerary ritual descent into water for a royal figure identified with Isis-Osiris gains archaeological grounding, though not yet definitive proof. The task ahead lies not in persuasive rhetoric, but in technique accessing the two unexcavated sealed chambers beneath deep silt, recovering any organic material, tracing collapsed strata, and ensuring interpretations stay tethered to evidence. For if water is this land's memory, it is also its final veil. Lifting that veil demands the patience of science and sobriety against the pull of myth. As news spread, the world was electrified. Headlines proclaimed it the most significant clue in 2,000 years. CNN, BBC, National Geographic, and Archaeology magazine ran stories. Sunken ancient harbor may lead to Cleopatra's tomb. But within archaeology, a fierce debate erupted. Zahi Hawass was vocal. No royal tomb was buried in a temple. Cleopatra lies in Alexandria's sunken royal quarter. Not here. He called Martinez's work PR archaeology excavation for publicity, not science. Others noted that seawater skews carbon dating, rendering artifact ages unreliable. Some claimed the tunnel was merely a Roman drainage system, devoid of religious significance. Yet even the staunchest skeptics admit the structure's precision surpasses the era's known engineering. The stones are tightly fitted, their cuts flawless, the alignment deviating no more than 2 degrees over a kilometer. Engineers suggest this required advanced Greek geometry and superior leveling techniques. Did Cleopatra commission Greek architects to create a monument that was both a religious symbol and a technical masterpiece where life and death merged? In early 2024, Taposiris Magna entered a new phase of excavation. After years of digging through dark sand and water, Martinez's team was bolstered by unprecedented technology: oceanographers, robotic engineers, and the exploration team of Bob Ballard, famed for finding the Titanic. They began by blanketing Alexandria's western coast with multi-frequency sonar, typically used for mapping shipwrecks or deep-sea terrain. Autonomous submersibles scanned every square meter of silt, their echoes forming luminous data layers. The resulting 3D images revealed something unseen before the Isis temple's stone foundation extending seaward, like a fracture swallowed by time. In the control room, The data unveiled two sealed chambers aligned with the temple's axis. Their size matched Ptolemaic royal burial chambers. But uniquely, they lay within a subsided geological zone pulled underwater by an ancient cataclysm. These were no natural formations right angles, parallel walls, and westward-facing doors, the direction of the setting sun and the soul's journey to the afterlife in Egyptian belief. Some in Ballard's team described the structures as a horizontal pyramid designed to sink. Egypt's Antiquities Authority issued a statement: these structures may lead to an unexcavated royal tomb. If true, this would be the 21st century's most seismic discovery, pinpointing the burial of Cleopatra VII, the woman who shook Rome, even without concrete finds. The chamber's existence challenges what we know of the Ptolemaic era. If Cleopatra lies beneath the sea, it suggests she sought not to be memorialized as a queen, but reborn as a goddess, not entombed in a palace, but enshrined in water. A woman who died not to be mourned, but to become an eternal symbol of rebirth. As scans continued, more anomalies emerged, secondary corridors linking the chambers to small circular pits, possibly for offerings, stones inscribed with Greek letters mixed with Isis symbols, a submerged arch extending toward deeper waters. Everything points to deliberate intent. The temple was built to commune with the ocean. Processed through GIS and 3D scanning, the data revealed a complete model. The Isis-Taposiris complex and its sunken harbor form a 2-kilometer ritual axis. Along it, Cleopatra or her devotees left a stone manifesto: when the waters rise, the goddess will ascend. Science is piecing together what myth has long whispered. In Egyptian lore, when Osiris was slain, his body was cast into the Nile, and Isis found him through the water song. Now, after 2,000 years, technology listens to that same water. Sonar pulses from the seabed echo an ancient tale where myth and science meet at the edge of reality and legend. Cleopatra was not just a historical figure, she was a living message. In an ancient world ruled by men, she alone spoke to Rome in its own language of strategy, culture, and image. She governed not just with swords, but with the story of herself. If she chose death in water, it was not despair, but a deliberate act to define her legacy, a ritual and a rebellion. She buried her body and story so Rome could not claim her. Taposiris Magna, the tomb of Osiris, is thus more than a temple. It is a declaration against oblivion, in the darkness of sand and sea. Cleopatra still speaks to posterity: I did not lose. I transformed. 2,000 years later, as sonar beams and robotic lights pierce the silt, humanity repeats the act she foresaw, opening a sealed door. Each 3D dataset, each reconstructed stratum, revives a fragment of memory. The question is no longer, where is Cleopatra? But what are we prepared to face if we find her? For unearthing the past is not just about finding truth, it is about exposing the lies that built history. If one of the ancient world's most vilified figures chose death as a grand ritual, how many other traitors, fallen, or seductresses were merely victims of history's scribes? When history rises from the deep, in September 2025, as the excavation season closed, the waters receded from the temple's edge, revealing stone blocks gleaming in the autumn sun. Kathleen Martinez stood silently, watching silt stream between ancient steps. On the surface, decades of her team's labor had crystallized into one undeniable truth memory endures. A reporter's camera focused on her face. She spoke not of victory or fame, but said, "This is not just archaeology. It is the restoration of human memory." In that moment, the numbers, measurements, 3D data, and GIS maps dissolved. Only one idea remained: history does not die. Cleopatra's story, then, is not about finding a tomb. It is a metaphor for every truth, buried memories erased by power, voices silenced, civilizations rewritten to suit victors. History is told by those who hold the pen. But sometimes, the past knows how to protect itself. Like Cleopatra, somewhere between earth and water, between the realms of life and myth, waiting for humanity to find the courage to listen. And when the water and sand recede, what remains will not be bones or gold, but a question: do we truly know who rules our past?